Hi everybody, it's Monica here with my first online course. And this course is going to be all about beekeeping in the heat and how to possibly help your bees from dying. Because I've been contacted quite a few times this week about meltdowns and complete deaths of colonies from extreme temperatures. We're experiencing triple digits, on average probably around 105 degrees Fahrenheit, and like the other night at 8 p.m. it was still 97 degrees outside. 8 p.m. So basically the bees are foraging really early in the morning, and then you're not going to see them for the rest of the day. Forage temperatures are just not being reached until after dark. And so they're most active right up, like even probably before most people get out of bed, the bees are being active. I have one of them on me here right now. I think it's around 6 a.m. She's being fussy. She wants to know what I have. So anyway, let's get to it. They need to be foraging for water. So let's go check some of my water sources and see how active they are right now. Okay, this is one of 9 water sources that they have. And as you can see, they prefer shaded water sources during the summer months. And you need to give them something safe to float on so that they don't drown in your water. Okay, so bees need water. Clean, fresh, safe forage area water in the shade. Did I say in the shade? Very important, in the shade. So with our temperatures reaching in that 105, 107 degrees Fahrenheit, what is our humidity? This is also extremely important. So inside a colony, the bees want the humidity to be close to 50%. In the brood chamber, up to 78, 80%. And yet our ambient humidity outside, the lowest recorded for Tucson, 0%. 0% humidity. That record date was, I believe, in March of 2021. But we've had 4%, 6%. Literally way down there. We are not a very humid region. We're a desert. So with that said, until the monsoon comes, there's no humidity. So until monsoon season, when it does start to rain, the bees experience this time period of extreme dryness. So they're gathering water, they're foraging for water, and they're bringing that back to the colony in order to put in and evaporate cool. So they're fanning the water molecules or the droplets of water, and they're fanning it in order to do cooling system. However, if you don't have that forage population, like let's say your colony is really small, maybe it got hit by mites, or maybe you're just starting out with a small colony, or you did a bee removal and it's really small. Anything can happen that the colony is small. They don't have the correct number of foragers in order to go out and get all of those water droplets that they need in order to cool their colony. We're going to get also into thermal regulation. You might have plenty of foragers, but if you got that colony buttoned down too tight because of robbing, they can't thermoregulate. We're going to get to that here soon. So this is all just about the water. So at first I had asked my dad, when I was doing bee removals, I was having some problems with the very small colonies that I was removing in summertime, and they were basically struggling because of the heat. They didn't have the population of foragers necessary. And so Dad's like, hey, get yourself a gallon garden sprayer that you've never used for anything else before, very clean, brand new. Put in a gallon of water and a pinch of Himalayan salt. And bees need electrolytes. Do you ever notice that, especially like sweat bees, they sit on you and they gather the salts off your body? So bees actually need salt. So you can provide a little bit of salt by having this sprayer, a little bit of salt water, and spraying it in the entrance. Just give it a squirt around 3 p.m. every day when it's hot. And I'm like, oh, that's a lot of work. So then Dad also goes, hey, you could also put a frame feeder in just for salt water. And that's what we started doing. And it works amazingly. So not only does it help the bees cool the colony, but it provides humidity. That humidity helps the brood. Without the humidity, the brood is dry and it can't pupate properly. Extreme temperatures also kill the brood. So you'll like have brood that's being taken out, and you might be blaming your queen for it. And it's not your queen's fault. It's the temperature. So, you know, the colony needs to be 90, 93, 95 degrees inside the brood chamber at all times. When it hits that 100, you're starting to cook eggs. Bees don't like cooked eggs. They pull them out and they discard them, or they cannibalize them and they reuse them for something else. If you get too much of that, your colony is going to start to decline. Your queen can actually have her spermatheca damaged if they hit 103. It could be just 103 for one day inside the colony. And your spermatheca on your queen now is damaged. She might not lay as much, or she might not. I mean, there's all these issues that come into play with heat. Heat is damaging, not just to your wax and not just to meltdowns, but to your brood. And you can actually cook your bees. So let's go into that. So I don't know if I mentioned this already or not. I'm going to repeat myself and edit. So if you're watching this, Monica, edit this out. We had 0% humidity in March of 2021. So this isn't something new. That's our lowest recorded. 0. Big whoop. 4-6% humidity is not uncommon before the monsoons. So after monsoons start, we have humidity, and this is not necessary. You don't need to do what I'm talking about right now by adding that frame feeder of water. The other thing is, I just want to note, you know, people will like go, how do you know the bees are getting hot? Well, number one, they'll be bearding. Number two, you'll start to see that damage to your brood. Number three, you'll see a decline in the population. All these things start to happen. You'll see excessive fanning during the day. You'll see some meltdown. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that it's down on the bottom board, but even just sagging in your honeycomb. All these situations start to come into play. You do not need any fancy equipment to know that your hive is starting to get hot. You can just do a basic inspection, and you will, if you're being thorough and you are being attentive to your colony, you don't need a thermometer inside the hive to know what is happening. Okay. I'm going to use an example, though, on when thermometers do come in handy. One of my students sent me a complaint about her hive, like a question going, hey, we got a problem. And I don't know what the problem is. I have my bottom brood box a deep, and the queen doesn't want to be in it. She only wants to be in the second one. And she's running out of space. And every time I manipulate frames, they move back up. They don't want to be in that bottom box. And so I'm like, hey, you have a thermometer in there. Give me a reading. She sent me readings, and her bottom box was close to 100 degrees. And so I said, hey, it's too hot down there. They don't like that. And we realized that as a hobbyist, the location of the hive was not very good for honeybees. But that's the only location she had in her yard, and she absolutely loved her bees. So the bees were on a concrete pad right next to a shed, right next to her block house, and near a block wall, retaining wall. That's a lot of reflective heat. So I'm like, okay, we have a couple of options. Number one, get a misting system out there. Not that the bees fly through it, just around it to start cooling that area of your property down. Number two, go to Goodwill or any other thrift store. Find yourself a used rug. If you have a rug that you don't want, use it. Put it underneath the colony. Put a drip on it. And let me know what your readings go to. Boom, the queen started using the bottom box, temperatures dropped inside of it, and we cured the problem. So it's being attentive to your bees, not just going in there and going, well, I think she even had a screen bottom board. I mean, like, people are oh, I have a screen bottom board, I don't need anything else. Well, yes, you do. It's more than that. So location is a big key. As I mentioned, Stacy really didn't have a great location. The best location is underneath a tall shade tree on the northeast side. They'll get morning sun, but afternoon shade. That's the best location. That's not always possible here in southern Arizona. In fact, most of my trees are scrub mesquite. They're not very tall unless I'm watering them. Hardly anything. And when you see, I mean, I get it. People are going, oh, Monica, we drive down the interstate, we see bees in white boxes that are just right out in the sun. It's just wide open in the sun. I'm like, those are commercial beekeepers' boxes. And they keep their hives extremely strong, or they consolidate them. They share resources from other hives. If they have 2 or 3 weak hives, they get put into one hive. They just get moved around a lot. If you only have 1 hive or 2 hives and they're getting weak, most hobbyists that I've met are they're not open to combining hives. They want to save each one of them. The other thing I noticed that, like, when I'm driving through, like, heading to Yuma on the interstate or Imperial Valley, the commercial beekeepers actually go a step further. They will, if it's a permanent bee yard, they will add a shade structure, an actual built shade structure. Or, most commercial beekeepers run their hives on migratory pallets, which basically means 1 pallet that has 4 colonies on it. And they have built-in bottom boards. That's what that is. So it's the perfect size. You have your colonies on this pallet, and then you just set an empty pallet on the top of the colonies. This allows some shade so that the sun is not beating directly down on the cover. But we can go further than that. We have options. So one of your options is a circular entrance disc, but not as an entrance. Let's talk about this. Okay, excuse my drawings. Circular entrance discs. Now, I learned this. I'm going to give credit to wherever I got the credit, wherever I seen this, because I hate it when people steal ideas and then claim them as their own. So I saw this in Mexico. So basically, let's say this is here's your entrance, got your bottom board, got a telescoping lid, inner cover, blah, blah, blah. Don't poke fun of my drawings. So you have your entrance. Let's say your entrance is right here. And because you got robbing, you only have it in the 2B in, 2B out kind of size. So your guard bees are reduced to being able to protect a very small area. The problem with this style is that there's no airflow. Let's say this is a solid bottom board, reduced entrance. You're cooking your bees. Cooking them. So let's fix this. Number one, Let's take the entrance reducer completely out. We are worried, however, about robbing. It's that time of year. There's no flowers. So you can either purchase robbing screens or make one of your own. Just Google search. YouTube videos are fantastic for learning how to do things, right? So you're going to put this robbing screen in. And so the idea behind a robbing screen is basically this goes on your bottom board. The robber bees smell the scent of the colony through the screen and don't know that the entrance, however, is up here. So your bees know to come out and crawl all the way up here to get in and out. This is their entrance. The robber bees just get stuck here. And they just are like lost. But they smell the scent of the colony. So this is a plus. So no entrance reducer, use robbing screen. Number one, that automatically opens the entire bottom here for airflow. So we're going to use blue as our airflow. So now you have airflow through this whole area. But hot air rises and it's still getting stuck. Commercial beekeepers might do something like this. We're going to show this as a side view. pretty crappy side view there. They might take their boxes here and do a setback. So now the bees have airflow right here. But that's the entire length, and up higher on a second or third box. And if you've got a weaker hive or a hive that is becoming weak and you're not noticing it, you're going to get robbing, big time robbing from this area. The other thing that they do, and if they can do this, or they will set like a penny or something up on the very top so that the lid is just slightly askewed. A little bit of airflow heading out there. So you've got air able to come up and goes out kind of thing. But if your hive is weak, this is not good because you're allowing for robber bees. So by doing it this way and then putting on the screen, the robber screen, you have airflow going in the entire area here. You could also use a screen bottom board. Can do that. But again, your hot air is not getting out anywhere. So, by using the round entrance disc on your equipment, I'm going to use the color red. Red for entrance discs. On the back side, so this is your entrance on the back side. Just pretend like this is the back side. You can put these entrance discs in. During a flow, during a nectar flow, you can have it wide open to the large size. By having it wide open to the large size, your bees are entering and putting in nectar in your upper boxes instead of all going in the bottom box and backfilling where your queen is supposed to be laying eggs. So this helps with that. But we're talking about heat, and we're talking about dearth or periods where there's nothing for the bees. So you're going to rotate it to just the screen. By using just the screen on these boxes, now your airflow, so you got air coming out here, air coming out here, air coming out here, and now your airflow goes in and can come out like so. And with that airflow, the bees can fan and create thermal regulation. If they don't like this much air, they literally will close it down with propolis. They will fix what they don't like. But this is actually giving them airflow. The other thing that you can do is, let's change this style. So let's say you don't want to use these round entrance discs. There's another way. I still recommend using a robbing screen. The other way, okay, let's go back to your, and actually, we're going to consider it a smaller colony. We're going to go with a smaller colony. Let's say you're down to 2 deeps. You took your honey supers off. You're down to 2 deeps. And again, I still recommend the robbing screen so that you have open, so robbing screen or screen bottom board, okay? Again, the air is getting stuck here. So make yourself another box. This is just an empty, like a medium empty. And on both sides, put in 2 or 3 inch holes. And then make those screened. So put screen over top of those. Now here you're going to use, in between your colony and this box, you're going to use your inner cover. So those that don't know what an inner cover is, from a top view, it's basically a cover with a hole in it like that. So basically here's your inner cover. The air is going to escape out here, come up into this box. This is where your telescoping lid is, right on top of this box. So air comes out of your inner cover. Let's get that trusty airflow going here. Air comes up, goes through the inner cover hole, and then comes out of the hive through those screens. Very simple. You need to have an airflow for the bees to be able to thermal regulate. If you shut them down too much, you're not going to get airflow and they can't do anything. So it all is in your hive style. These are just examples. Think like a bee. Think like, how would a bee have to cool their hive? And what temperature do they want their hive? And what humidity level do they want their hive? Because that's another thing. They need humidity. So by doing this and by putting a frame feeder of water in there, frame feeder of water, salt water, Himalayan salt, pinch of Himalayan salt per gallon of water. Now you've created humidity and you've created airflow, and they can thermal regulate. So we've got that happening. Okay, so we talked about the size of the hive, color of the box. So color of the box is extremely important, because if you paint your box a dark color, it's going to attract more heat. White bee boxes, the reason why commercial beekeepers use it is because it's found to be the most reflective. However, many of us are cheap beekeepers and we like oops paints. Oops paints being the cheap paints that are sold on the oops pile, like somebody ordered a paint color and then didn't like it, or it didn't match exactly like the, you know, the example that they brought in. And so they're like, oh, we don't want to buy that one. And let's try again on making another color. And so those gallons will be set for on sale at those big box stores. So you can get paint cheaper. Well, that's all good. And you want latex exterior paints, and you want them to be in very light colors. You don't want dark colors. So if you're painting your colony for a hobbyist's backyard, a garden hive is what I call them. They want to make them look fancy or cute, enjoyable, a piece of art in their yard art. That's all well and good, but make sure it's not a dark color. One time I had a student paint beautiful box, beautiful box, had a night blooming cactus, night blooming cerise, all painted on it. It was stunning. But she painted the box dark purple because she wanted to have that contrast, the night blooming cerise, the night blooming flower, and it was bad though. Beautiful design, but bad color for the bees. So, light colored boxes. Next thing, I will see these things on the side of the road that flew off construction companies. Trucks, like a piece of plywood or a piece of thick insulation board. Man, I am grabbing that. It's like, instead of that bumper sticker that says, I break for yard sales, mine says, I break for construction material. So, I had mentioned how on commercial hives that they will put a plywood. So they have basically a migratory pallet down here that the hives are sitting on. And then they'll literally take a piece of pallet. And they will put the pallet up on top here. And basically this allows airflow on top of the hive, cooling, and the sun is not beating directly down on the cover. I'm talking about picking up scraps of lumber. Don't have to go buy anything. Find it. It could be around your boneyard, something that you have stuck in your garage, something that you can utilize to shade your colony so that the sun is not beating directly on it. So, this is my pallet, my plywood, my foam board. Take the foam board pallet and extend it over the top of your colony and sit a cinder block on it. And now the sun's rays, let me find a different color here. The sun's rays will beat down, but it cannot reach the sensitive walls of your hive. It will not touch the sidewalls. Your hive is protected. This is cheap beekeeping. This is a cheap way to alter a Langstroth colony. They're making all these fancy colonies, and I have them. I have Apimae and all of the insulated colonies. You don't need them if you just do some simple alterations to your Langstroth hives. So, the other thing that's available or that you can make is actually a solar fan. I use solar fans on my queen bank. Okay. So on the queen bank, which is in a shaded area, they have their water. So I have that inner cover. So again, inner cover, we talked about the airflow going in, coming out the very center there. Now, on top of that, I have this fancy box. And this fancy box has a fan. We're gonna put like a, I don't know how to make a fan. We're gonna call that a fan. And it has a solar panel. Okay. Here's our sun. All right. So what happens then is that when that fan is on, which it doesn't run at night, of course, it only runs when the sun is shining, this fan actually sucks it out. The fan is drawing out. So you have this nice airflow is being pulled. Works great. There's actually, I think, how-tos on making your own solar fan for on top of your colony. There's so many cheap solar kits now on the internet. You can easily find something to use. And so, and I forget the name. I will try to put the name of the solar fan that I have. It was actually gifted to me by my mom and dad. So I will put the name of that one. If you want to just purchase one instead of making it, I will put an affiliate link to that. So more. There's more tips. Okay, here we go. That was the solar fan. All right, a homemade cover. The homemade cover is basically, let me take some of this out here. I'm going to take out the commercial beehive here. Okay. So this is a 1x2. Okay. So this is the 2-inch. And there's just a piece of plywood over the top. And basically screwed on. Okay. This is literally a cover. So let's look at it from a top view. So from a top view, basically a square, rectangle. So this is 1-inch thickness. So this is your hive underneath it. This is 2 inches. And what's sitting on is just 1 inch. Okay? Following? And you have a piece of plywood on the top part. So this is a 2-inch airspace. This is really good for doing treatments, mite treatments. This is allowing a space for, and so you can call it a spacer. This is, when I was growing up, this was a sugar board. We would actually put bee feed in it. So with this, I usually have a little round hole on the top here. Let's put it over here. So my little round hole, I usually will take a bucket and invert it over the top, and that's my sugar syrup. So that's what that hole is for me. But I will drill another hole much larger, 2-3 inches, and I'll put mesh in it. So now this mesh is here. Freaking coyotes. I'm gonna have to get back there. I think they're eating my bees. Excuse me. Okay, sorry. So this is your 2-inch cover with the hole in it. This is my inverted. I'm going to use green so it doesn't get confused because all my syrup buckets are green. I buy them from Uline. So syrup bucket inverted over top of this hole. So the syrup bucket is right here. And then the bees can suck. But the air is not coming, of course, now out that hole. The air is now coming out of the screened hole. Right here. So this is where the air is escaping from that hole there. But I take it one step further. I take an empty, deep box and I set it over top of my feeder. So now my feeder is shaded. My syrup is not getting really hot. It's protected. On that box, I think I used red before. So on this box, I have one of the round entrance discs. And I have that turned so that the air is coming out. So in other words, it comes up, comes out my cover. Hot air rises, comes out my cover, and then comes out that box. And then, of course, on top of this it's all protected using an inner telescoping lid. In the shade, if you don't have shade, adding extra protection. Cinder block. Cheap. You know how many covers you can make for like next to nothing. This is the easiest way to do this. You don't have to spend a bunch of equipment on money. Bunch of money on equipment. Good gosh. I'm kind of being flustered here. Trying to remember. Okay. The other thing is, try to do your inspections when it's the closest to the brood temperature. So 93 degrees, 94 degrees. Try to do your inspections. Now, do you remember I mentioned how at 8 p.m. it was still 97 degrees outside? Not so bad because it's going to cool down. It's going to cool down at 8 p.m. Temperatures are still dropping. We're getting down into the 70. I think we woke up at 3:30 this morning at 72 degrees. So like right now probably is the perfect time to get out there and do an inspection. I think it's around 6:30, 7 a.m. Okay, one other thing is that these inner telescoping lids, you can paint them with Cool Coat. So Cool Coat is a reflective coating for roofs. It's white, thick, like a rubberized coating that reflects. And everybody that has seen the inner telescoping lid is that they have reflective metal on it. Well, metal heats up. And so the best thing to do is to paint that with Cool Coat. So put a protective coating, reflective coating. So basically it's reflecting your sun. So put a Cool Coat coating on top of your inner covers, or a piece of plywood, because it's nice to have during the winter months. You can have summer and winter equipment, or with these entrance discs, you can literally close them. Just close them down. There's a solid section. So you have wide open, queen excluder, screen is what you want during the summer, and then close it completely off with the solid for winter. If you don't remember to do it, or if the bees don't like it, they will propolize it. So when I go in and I'm looking to find out if there is an issue going on with the sun, I look at the brood. I look to see how healthy the brood is. You know, and that's not to say that there's other brood pathogens happening, but kind of like getting an overall sense of the food quality. So are they getting a lot of food? And I will show a picture right now of what healthy open brood should look like. Okay, so this is a photo taken off of one of my PowerPoints. And notice how I mentioned pollen and nectar is food. These young larvae must be fed approximately every 43 seconds. So this is what your bee population needs to do: everything, all the house chores, all the forage chores. And if you don't have them, enough bodies to dedicate to thermal regulation and water gathering, your colony is not going to do well. So what I was pointing out was the health of this larva. And if you notice, they're nice and moist. They're white, they're not dry, and they have lots of food inside. They're not dried out. There's a nice humid moisture, lots of food, very healthy. Do not have the nice amount of jelly in there, or if the jelly is dry or the larva looks dry, you might have issues with heat, humidity. All of these things, you want the temperature of the inside of the colony to be able to be adjusted. We're pretty much what I say beekeepers are. We're the upper CEO of the hive. We're management. And so if your employees or your worker bees don't have the resources in order to do their job correctly, us beekeepers must supply it. Okay? So if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them via email. You can send an email over to kingmonica772@gmail.com, and I will write that down here as well. And you probably get that when you follow me. You can go to my website. I will try to be doing a lot more online courses. I was going to offer my Beekeeping 101 course online, and then just have people be able to come out in the bees like at 7 o'clock in the morning to get their hands-on part, because my online my 101 class is like 9 a.m. to noon, and then we break for lunch, and then we don't get in the bees until 1. Well, 1 o'clock in Tucson, it gets uncomfortable, and I don't want to discourage beekeepers or beginning beekeepers. I don't want to have anybody pass out from heat exhaustion, and opening my hives in those temperatures is not good for them. So I don't like it. Okay. There's a blog area, monicamking.com.